Macbeth was the first play that got me interested in theater.
I first fell in love with this play when I was in high school.
It was the first play I read and said, oh my gosh, theaters can be like this.
I think, as is true of a lot of Shakespeare's plays, many of them are relevant. And the reason is that the theme is pretty universal. I mean, we're talking about ambition and we're talking about greed.
He's such an iconic character. You know, it's hard not to see a contemporary story about someone who's seduced by the possibility of power and does extraordinarily violent and evil things and not think about Macbeth.
You see this theme in TV shows today like House of Cards, Breaking Bad, where all these men that are trying to defeat fate, their ambition takes them only so far and it ultimately leads to their demise.
That idea of personal ambition is rooted in nearly everyone, and you know how far we go varies from person to person.
I don't think it obviously happens in the same extent. I don't think people kill people for promotions anymore.
But I think it's human nature and it's ingrained in all of us.
The title of Shakespeare's play that we are doing at the University of Evansville is somewhat taboo to say in a theater space.
Over the years, those of us in the theater believe that there is a curse connected with the play.
I personally don't believe in it. Is the light gonna fall on me? But the Scottish play has been linked in the past to, if you've said the name of the play in a theater, bad things happen. That's why we call it the Scottish play.
You know, I've seen a lot of productions of Macbeth, but I'm not aware of it deserving the title, the Scottish play. And so I said to my designers, why is that?
Scotland is one of the big contributors in the overall image for the show. He wants to be very Scottish, very Scottish.
The main thing for the show is that it's Scottish in the time period.
Shakespeare wrote the play to be set in the 11th century. We have pushed the time period forward a little bit to better accommodate things like kilts, bagpipe music.
The first thing I think people think about when they think Scottish is kilts.
We are doing kilts. Most of the men are having kilts.
I know in rehearsal, I need to be able to feel confident moving around in a man's skirt.
Rehearsal clothes. The purpose is so that you get used to moving in a garment that is similar to what you'll be wearing on stage. Important.
With rehearsal clothes, you do the best you can to match what you're wearing. I wear a long, flowy skirt in rehearsal, and the men are in skirts right now because they don't have kilts quite yet.
A lot of the men are actually wearing knee-length circle skirts.
Many of them are wearing my skirts, so that's pretty exciting. Macbeth is wearing my skirt, and he looks pretty good in it.
I don't wear a kilt to rehearsal. Ben does, which is lovely.
You're much nimbler with a kilt on than you are with pants or shorts or whatever another character would wear.
Scenically, we're abstract. The fact that it's set in Scotland, and yet we're not trying to recreate the Scottish countryside, but allude to it.
John David brought in this National Geographic of actual stones from the area in Scotland where we're going to be. That became the impulse for the scenery.
We have these monolith type of stones that are reminiscent of Stonehenge, but it's the Stonehenge of Scotland.
And the floor is this Celtic knot that sort of grew out of stone research that we found. So the set came first, really, and then the witches came next, because they sort of grow out of that world.
They're going for a sort of like primal, grimy, dirty look, but that's also like sexy.
We want them to look magical and kind of ephemeral. But we also want them to look very earthy, like they've been in a coal mine for 10 years.
They're earthly, they work the wind, they're natural.
We have to grow out our armpit hair.
But they're also evil, and they're black, and they're dark.
They started with the witches as far as her concept for costumes and built out. So it's like the whole show now is going to have this sort of grimy, disgusting, but still interesting to look at feel.
Miss Patty is constantly telling us primitive, very raw. I'm doing a lot of that with the leather working and the crowns. They still look nice, but they're not made out of metal, they're made out of leather.
It's a world where they've just come from the battlefield, so they're very dirty and there's lots of blood. We're trying to create a dangerous, dark, exotic, seductive world.
There is a lot of blood, and there's a lot of dirt and things like that. So we have to keep the hair very much in the period, which for the ladies means really long, flowing, braided hair. And for the men means kind of scruffy beards and longer hair.
I think it was beginning of July, we got an email.
It was just an email that said,
hey guys, if you're trying out for Macbeth, don't shave. And then it was a picture of Tom Hanks from Castaway.
And then this thing started coming out of my face.
This beard is the result of 3 months, I believe.
I'd forgotten how red his hair is, and so he has this full, bushy red beard. It gives a great presence as well.
The audition process here at the university is that we audition for the entire season all at once.
Literally, I believe it's the first day of school. We prepare 3 pieces.
I think we had 2.5 minutes to do a song and a contemporary piece and a Shakespeare piece.
There were about 100 or so auditions.
We all get together, just kind of file onto the stage, do our stuff.
That night, the directors all sit down of the 3 shows, and they're like, hey, who do you want? Who wants who?
And then you got called back. And you go to the call board and you see your name and it doesn't tell you what part you're getting called back for.
Callbacks are they're like a pleasant surprise. Like they gave us the sides that we'd be reading from, but they don't tell you like, oh, we want you to read this scene. It's not like that.
Double, double, toil and trouble, fire, burn, and cauldron bubble. Fillet of a fent snake in the cauldron, boil and bake.
They have to have read the play pretty thoroughly. And they have to be able to, in a sight reading situation with books in their hands, be able to make sense of the text.
I got very familiar with the language. I figured out what they were saying, what happened before that this scene happened, and what happened after the scene happened, so I could be as prepared as possible.
And then Lutz calls you up on the stage and he says, read this scene for us.
You're paired with different actors, and it's basically just for the director to see how you work with other people, if there's good chemistry between you.
During the callback process, it seems as much talent-based as like visual-based, where they'll be like, okay, this person with this person reading, how do they look together? Obviously, I'm like 6'5", so if I'm reading with someone who's 5'5", it looks very strange.
It's kind of like athletics, when they talk about a basketball player being 7 foot tall or something, you can't teach height. But you also can't teach what a person looks like. There's a reason that Chris Haley plays Macduff. He's an imposing-looking guy, and he's perfect as the nemesis for Macbeth.
Turn, 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 turn. Go towards, oh, yes!
Emily was raised in a really Shakespearean family. Her dad's this huge Shakespearean actor, very well known in regional theaters all across the Midwest.
She grew up in Shakespeare. I'm sure that her first memory of theater would be of her dad and probably her mom on the stage saying the words that Shakespeare wrote.
She has this comfort and ease about her when she reads the text and this knowledge that is unparalleled, really, and it's really wonderful to be able to act with someone who has that confidence with the language.
Art thou afeard? Do thy same in thine own act and valor as thou art in desire. Wouldst thou have that which thou esteem'st the ornament of life, and live a coward in thine own esteem?
Ben, obviously, as Macbeth, came to us. It was clear that he had read the play many times and that he had dealt with the language in preparation for the auditions, because he did quite an impressive audition.
You common cry of curse, whose breath I hate as reek of the rotten fence, whose love I prize more than the dead carcasses of unburied men that do corrupt my hair. I banished you!
I just knew I had to prepare this summer and be familiar with the character and with the text enough, because I really wanted to make it know that I wanted it.
I've never really had a scene partner that I've worked that extensively with for such intense scenes. It's great. Ben's a really good friend, so it's really challenging, but it's good because we know each other. We've known each other for 3 years, so the chemistry is already kind of there.
One of the biggest challenges with Shakespeare is the text.
Some people will be like, oh, they talk funny, so why should I pay attention?
It's a lot different than how we talk now, obviously, but it's incredibly important to know every single word that you're saying.
In Shakespeare, you have to know exactly what every single word means, or else it's really difficult to say your lines.
If I don't know what I'm saying, then no one's going to know what I'm saying.
And then translations get lost and the story gets lost. And that's why working with Christia is so beneficial.
Christia Ward, who teaches classes in the verse farm, works with the students. Once casting is completed, she starts with private appointments.
The day after the cast list went up, ran into her in the hall and she said, Anders, we need to set up a text appointment.
I went in twice a week, every week, up until we started rehearsals, which I guess was like a month.
She would like give me notes on words that I was pronouncing wrong, times that I didn't necessarily have the entire grasp on the line.
I think we've been using give me, which makes sense. To have a trochee there.
Sure.
But it could be an I am too, like give me the daggers.
Oh, okay.
You decide which one you want to use.
We go over every single word, every single line of text.
From just words that we don't understand, she gives us the context, and then words that we do understand, making them come alive.
We need to focus on how much we breathe, our punctuation, because those little things matter.
Working with Christia is great. Text work can sometimes be a tedious process, but she doesn't really make it that way. She makes it really interesting, and she's really patient with you as you work through some of those speeches.
There was one line, I wish I could remember it, and we ended up, it actually got cut.
Yes, we cut Shakespeare. We cut Shakespeare because everybody cuts Shakespeare. Unless they have announced that it's uncut, any Shakespeare play that you go to see has been cut.
Shakespeare plays are so long, especially the tragedies and the histories, that it's hard to keep people's attention for 5 full acts. I mean, that's like a 3.5 hour, 4-hour play. And there are large, very poetic scenes where not a whole lot happens.
The main thing is, can we tell the story and tell the story clearly?
We say, what's the story here? What's important about the action? What are the words that we need in order to tell that story? And anything that won't support that, we cut.
There's a couple of major combat scenes in this play, and they're all highly choreographed.
Diego Vajada is a former student of ours. Since he graduated, he went to graduate school, focused on stage combat, but also movement.
Diego he's a boss. He's really great.
He's amazing.
Diego's an incredible teacher. He knows how to talk to each student individually and to get the best results from them.
Before you work on any show, here or anywhere else, you always check the knife that is going to be used on you. You get me?
Yeah.
All right. Why?
Because if you don't, you're gonna get stabbed.
You're going to get stabbed, right? So we're not trying to get stabbed for real.
My job, first of all, is safety. So the fights fit into the story in that they need to be executed in such a way that the actors are always safe.
You're playing with real swords. The second something happens, somebody could get hurt.
I have to make them comfortable, and we have to do it so many times that it becomes second nature.
It's incredibly important that we know each move by heart so that when the performance comes, I trust my fight partner and I know he's not going to hit me, and I need to make sure that I'm not going to hit him.
I've had a little bit of stage combat training, and so I was like, stage combat, cool, like I get to fall. When I was working with Diego, I realized there is so much more than to just like clunk.
I need to be able to stop it at any point. Watch me. Okay. If I didn't want to do it, I just... Nice. You landed with your wrist first, not your butt. Ready. There it is. Nice. Now yell. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
He meant business. The second he got here, he was like, okay, we're doing all of these right now. And we learned all of these big fights within like 2.5 hours.
It was one of the fastest choreographed fights I had ever been in. He came in and we did it for 2 hours and we laid down this like groundwork.
The way is that the fight gets built, it actually bears a lot of resemblance to writing an essay. Think about the outline, put in preliminary movements that are rough. It doesn't matter if they look good or not look good because everybody's working slow. And then after that, edit.
I really have a trust in him. I tell him what basically I want to see, and he'll show me things early and I'll respond.
I don't tie myself to anything. You can't be married to it because it's going to change. It has to change. The fight that the audience is going to see needs to have been looked at by both the fight director and the director.
Let us all be clear that there's only one director of the show. He's sitting right there. Right? There's only one director. So I'm creating this choreography to fit into the director's story.
Anybody can go in and like make a fight look cool, but he makes it look cool while also telling a story.
I make sure that every move I question myself. Is this the story that I just came up with right now because I thought it might be interesting or cool? Or is it the story that Shakespeare wrote that the director is telling? If it's just me, then I cut it.
Every single move, every single step we make, He's like, what is the purpose in that?
I might ask them, hey, what's the first move you would do? Based off of that first move, I then think, all right, what's open right now? Where would the sword want to go? Where does this person's body want to cut or slash or thrust or block?
He's just amazing at helping us come to a place where it is like believable. It's the best fight I've ever been in on stage, hands down.
I'm really excited for the set.
This is not the full set that we are going to be dealt with.
It's very preliminary planning. Okay, this is where you will be, but there is going to be a set of stairs there. So you can walk across this flat space now, but remember that there will be stairs there at one point.
Basically, it's being built while you're rehearsing. So as an actor, you're discovering this world along with everybody else.
The further we get into it, when we start getting more tech elements like these thunder and lightning sounds for the witches scenes, it makes it seem a little more realistic for us.
We go through tech the weekend before, but even then, we're still getting lighting. Some set elements may not be there. You're still going in for costume fittings. And then dress rehearsal night before is when you cross your fingers and just hope everything plans out.
I think the big standout moments in this show is where you see a character appear as a ghost.
Do you try to do that technically? Do you do it strictly in performance?
As a lighting designer, how do I do this in a way that first of all the audience understands what's happening, that it's not just the character back on stage?
I brought in this sort of saran wrap-like ghost. We went from that to he needs to be light reflective, to if he were pale and ghost-like but had on the same clothes, we would know who he is.
The way I light them has to be very different than I've lit anyone in the rest of the show.
So it's the lighting that's helping with the light reflective. I'm just putting a cape on that's real bouncy.
You have the issue of the witches and their cauldron.
Oh, I'm so excited for the cauldron. I can't remember the technical term for it.
I learned this term, a sloted trap.
Yes, sloted trap.
Operates like a sunroof on a car. It drops and slides back.
I didn't want to have to haul the cauldron on and off every time, and so because we're dealing with some pretty effective lighting, I decided that we needed a trap to open up in the center of the floor. So there's this hole in the floor and we shoot light up through it.
We can expose the witches to elements, air, light, fog, fire.
The most exciting part of the build for Macbeth is the severed head.
It's gonna have like blood dripping out of it. Oh, I can't wait.
What we're doing is actually taking a life cast of Ben Anderson's head and we're casting it in silicone rubber. It's going to reveal every detail of his skin, down to the wrinkles that even though he's 21 are already there. So in that moment where Macbeth falls and you have Chris Haley just slash off his head, he's going to be able to lean down, pick up the severed head, and it will actually bleed as he picks it up. I think actually my favorite part of the head, seeing it, and this is just the first stages of taking it out of the mold, but some of Ben's eyebrow hair that the release cream didn't catch all the way when we were actually life casting his head, some of the eyebrow hair actually ended up in the severed head itself, so it has a little bit of Ben in it.
There will be lots of blood and lots of gore and lots of fun things to look forward to.
When we have it all together, all those elements, it'll be like we're in a whole different world.
We're looking forward to putting all the elements together. I think those people that watch this video and hear from not only me, but everyone that's involved with the production, I hope it's informative and makes it exciting when you see the play.